In today's video, I'm going to show you how to go from this to this.
Shazam!
Aloha and welcome to Ninth Island RC. Today we're going to do a little how-to video, and it's going to involve swapping the battery tray, which has a height limit in terms of batteries. 2S batteries will fit very easily for those who want to run 3S and even 4S, especially if you replace the motor in ESC with something like the Castle Mamba Monster X or MMX. You're going to definitely need to replace the battery tray. We're going to replace it with an aftermarket carbon fiber and aluminum tray. This is actually designed for a TRX4, if I remember correctly. I picked it up a while ago. They are still available on eBay. I'm not going to put a link in. If you go onto eBay and you search using the keywords carbon fiber battery tray, you will find this. I guarantee it. It is sold by dozens of sellers under different names, but if you look at them, you'll see they are all the same battery tray. They include these aluminum end pieces, which are either black or raw silver, and they come with 4 M3 by 6mm cap head screws. As you can see, we're going to replace them with M3 by 10 flathead screws, and we'll get into that, why a bit later. The other thing you're going to need to do is you are going to need to modify the spur cover. As you can see, I've already taken care of doing that. Although, be careful. So when I originally traced it, I did it flat to the tray, and it was a little low. And that's because I had completely forgotten about the spacers. The reason for the spacers is because you're not going to want that tray sitting flat. You're going to need to raise it up a little bit because of the straps. Yes, you can do the straps through the standard straps, but obviously that puts a little lower, and those straps will eventually fray and break. So this is the idea of using the straps, but moving those straps above the chassis. So the first thing you're going to need to do, obviously, is you're going to need to remove the tray, stock part, and I've already done it, but you're going to need to remove the foam. Don't throw these away, because what you're going to eventually want to do is you're going to want to cut them to match, you may need to cut them to match this, to shorten the length of the battery tray that you will be installing. Now, as you can see, I've already removed the aluminum end pieces. I've already put the straps through the tray itself. So in essence, it's going to look something like that. You are going to have to modify your chassis. The other thing you're going to have to do is drill 2 new holes and do the countersink. So here's the first one, and it's in perfect alignment with this. Here's the second one, and it's in perfect alignment with that. And then obviously these. How you do that is actually quite simple. With the straps not in place, as I said, you do 1 screw through the chassis and the motor plate, the battery tray, sorry. Doesn't matter what screws you use. You get this in perfect alignment, so that's not like that. It's not like that, it's basically perfectly aligned. I used some tape to tape the battery tray to the chassis on both sides, and then I used a punch. Just lightly hammered it just to create a dot into the tray where each of the each of the 3 additional holes goes. And that's how I discovered that this one was just ever so slightly off. After that, I drilled basically a guide hole using a 1/16 inch drill bit just to get it started. Then I used a 3mm drill bit, and then finally after that I used the countersink bit to take care of these two and to slightly elongate this one. Sorry, this one. I'm at the wrong end. As you can see, it's also, even the countersink is slightly out, but that's okay. So to do this one, basically, I just did the drill, and kind of angled it just to elongate it so that it was still in. But again, I was slightly off. That's okay. So after that comes the installing. Now, as I said, you're going to want to put spacers between. Basically 1.5 to 2 millimeters, because the thickness of this uncompressed is basically 2 millimeters. And compressed, if you really compress it down, you can get it down to about 1.5. But you're going to need to have the positions of the already set, because you're not going to be able to move the straps. I've gone with approximately 2 millimeters. Unfortunately, I don't have any 2 millimeter spacers right now. So what I'm using is some thinner washers. Basically, if I remember correctly, I believe I've got like 0.8, 0.75, and 0.70. So I'm going to stack those to create basically a little over 2 millimeters to get that in. How you're going to have to install it, that's going to be a little difficult. I've already test fit everything to make sure it works, so I already found how to do it. Basically, what you're going to need to do is for all 4 holes, you're going to want to start by getting the screw in place, all 4 screws. You're going to need to do this with all 4. Then from this end, you're going to need to put your washers onto all 4 screws very carefully. Once you have all the washers on, then you're going to need to get the battery tray in place down onto the screws, again, very carefully, because you may push the screw out, which would cause the washers to drop. Once you have it situated, then you're going to put the NP, just start with 1, and while holding the, for example, the top one, while holding the bottom one, this bottom screw in, you're going to just slightly get the screw into the end piece, just a few turns, just to hold it in place. Do the same for the bottom. Once you have one end in, then you can do the same to the other end. Once you have all 4 ends in, then you can tighten it. So I'm going to show you step by step. Most of the rest of this video is going to be just photos. As you can see here, I've got the screws and the washers in place. To make it easier to remember, since I am using washers of 3 different thicknesses, the washers that are the thickest are on the bottom, and the washers that are the thinnest are on the top. And here you see that the tray has been very carefully placed onto the screws. So there you have it, the battery tray swap. As you can see, it's just ever so slightly raised up, and this will allow you to be able to move the straps if you need to adjust for different thicknesses. And then lastly, I'm not going to actually attach it, but as you can see, sorry, gotta get that, there we go, almost perfectly aligned with the back metal plate of the battery strap. One last piece of advice though, you definitely are going to want to thread lock, since the screws are going into aluminum. What I recommend is to fully tighten all the screws, as I have here, flip the vehicle upside down, remove 1 screw, add thread lock, tighten it back up, move to the next one, repeat, and then repeat for the remaining. So, there you are. Until next time, mahalo.